Ever get that feeling like you're standing at the foot of a mountain? This huge, epic thing you really want to climb, experience it all. But maybe, just maybe, you don't have, years to dedicate to the trek.
I think we've all been there.
Well, think of this as our express lift to the summit. We're diving straight into the heart of the Odyssey.
Homer's classic.
Exactly. And we've got this fantastic summary that lays out the early action. Odysseus starting his long, long journey home after the Trojan War, and all the drama already brewing back in Ithaca.
Sounds like a lot to unpack.
It is, but that's the fun part, right? We're pinpointing those key early events, figuring out how the gods and humans are interacting, and seeing what Odysseus's family is up against from the get-go.
Setting the stage for all the adventure to come.
Precisely. So first things first, where does this whole epic saga actually begin?
Well, it all starts, as you might expect, on Mount Olympus, with the gods, of course.
Of course, always a good place to kick things off.
And right away, Zeus makes this really interesting point about human suffering.
Okay, what's he saying?
He's basically like, look, you mortals always blame us gods for your troubles, but maybe, just maybe, he says, your own choices have something to do with it.
Makes you think, blaming the gods is easy.
It is, and it's a question that keeps popping up throughout the Odyssey. Are we really just pawns of fate? Or do we have some say in our own lives, even with the gods pulling strings?
I like that. That's a great question to keep in mind as we go along.
Definitely. And, it's Athena, the goddess of wisdom, who brings Odysseus's plight to everyone's attention. She's always been his biggest supporter.
Yeah, she's got his back, doesn't she?
Big time. And she's really worried about him being stuck on Calypso's island, Ogygia, for so long.
Right. Why is he stuck there again?
Oh, because Poseidon is furious with him. Remember, Odysseus blinded his son, Polyphemus, the Cyclops.
Ah, right, the Cyclops. That was a whole thing.
It was. And Poseidon's not one to forget a grudge. So he's been making sure Odysseus can't get home.
Talk about holding a grudge. But wait, I thought Poseidon was off doing something else at this point.
You're right. He's away visiting Ethiopia. And Zeus sees his chance.
Opportunity knocks.
He says Odysseus can finally start heading home. And to make things official, he sends Hermes, the messenger god, to tell Calypso to let him go.
So Hermes shows up at this island, Ogygia, which, by the way, sounds absolutely amazing.
Oh, it does, like a paradise. Lush vegetation, crystal clear waters.
And Calypso's not too thrilled about having to let Odysseus go, is she?
Not one bit. I mean, can you imagine? She's offered him immortality, eternal life, and now Zeus is saying, nope, time to pack your bags.
Ouch. I'd be a little annoyed too. But what's really interesting is that Odysseus actually wants to leave.
Yeah, it's a big deal. He's choosing a normal human life with all its limitations over endless bliss with a goddess.
He must really miss home.
He does. And it shows just how powerful those human connections are. His wife, Penelope, his son, Telemachus, his kingdom, he longs for it all.
He's giving up paradise for love and duty.
Exactly. So Calypso, even though she's not happy about it, helps him build a raft and sends him on his way.
With the wind at his back, finally heading home, it seems like things are looking up for Odysseus.
It does, doesn't it?
But this is the Odyssey, and things are never that simple, are they?
Not even close. While Odysseus is out at sea, we cut back to Ithaca, and things are not good. Not good at all.
What's going on?
His palace is overrun with suitors. These guys are basically partying it up, eating all his food, drinking all his wine, and trying to force Penelope to marry one of them.
They're like a bunch of entitled frat boys.
Pretty much. They figure Odysseus is dead, and the throne is up for grabs.
And Penelope.
She's stuck. She's mourning her husband, trying to protect her son's inheritance, and fending off these awful suitors. It's a terrible situation.
Talk about pressure.
Oh, it's immense. And then we meet Telemachus, Odysseus' son, who's still just a young man.
He must feel completely powerless.
He does. But then Athena steps in again. This time, she's disguised as a wise old friend named Mentes.
She loves a good disguise, doesn't she?
She does. And she gives Telemachus the courage to stand up to the suitors.
So what does he do?
He calls a big assembly, like a town meeting, and tells everyone what he thinks of these guys.
I bet they loved that.
Not really. Especially Antinous, who's the worst of the bunch.
What did he do?
He tries to shift the blame onto Penelope. He tells everyone about her secret weaving trick.
Oh, right, the shroud.
Exactly. She's been telling the suitors she'll choose one of them when she finishes weaving this burial shroud for her father-in-law, Laertes.
Clever Penelope.
Very clever. But every night, she secretly unravels some of the work, so she never finishes.
Buying herself some time.
Yeah, for 4 years. But eventually they figure it out, and the pressure on Penelope just gets worse.
Oh man, she can't catch a break.
Nope. And then, to make things even more interesting, a soothsayer shows up,
Ooh, a fortune teller.
basically.
Mm.
And he predicts that Odysseus is actually alive and will return soon.
But of course, the suitors don't believe him, do they?
Not a chance. They just laugh it off. They're so arrogant and self-absorbed they can't even imagine being wrong.
Talk about a bad case of hubris.
Exactly. But Telemachus, inspired by Athena's advice, decides he's not going to just sit around and wait.
What does he do?
He sets off on a journey of his own, sailing to Pylos and Sparta to try and find out if anyone's heard anything about his father.
He's finally taking charge.
He is. It's a huge step for him. But meanwhile, Odysseus is still out there on the open
You
sea.
didn't remember Poseidon is on his way back.
Oh, yeah. And the moment he sees Odysseus sailing along, he is not happy.
I bet not.
He unleashes this massive storm like you wouldn't believe. It's all his fury and rage directed at Odysseus.
Talk about bad timing.
The worst. Odysseus is nearly drowned. He even wishes he died honorably in battle at Troy.
He must feel completely hopeless.
He does. But then, just when you think it's all over for him, another goddess shows up.
The gods just love getting involved, don't they?
They do. This time, it's Leucothea, a sea goddess. And she gives him a magical veil.
A magical veil. What does it do?
It protects him from the storm and keeps him from drowning. It's like a divine life preserver.
Wow. The gods really are playing with his fate, aren't they?
They are. But thanks to that veil, Odysseus survives the storm and washes ashore on the island of Scheria, home of the Phaeacians.
So he's finally safe.
For now. But he's exhausted, and he's lost everything.
I can only imagine.
The first person he meets is Nausicaa, the king's daughter.
And what's she like?
She's described as incredibly beautiful. Odysseus even compares her to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt.
Smooth talker.
He knows how to make a good impression, even when he's shipwrecked and covered in seaweed.
Well, he's got nothing to lose, right?
True. And Nausicaa takes pity on him. She gives him food, clothes, and directions to the palace.
What a kind gesture.
The Phaeacians are famous for their hospitality. It's a huge part of their culture.
A stark contrast to those awful suitors back in Ithaca.
Totally. So Odysseus goes to the palace and tells his story to King Alcinous and Queen Arete.
And what do?
They welcome him with open arms, no questions asked. They hold feasts, they have games. It's a whole celebration.
It's like a homecoming party for a stranger.
It is. But then something interesting happens. During one of the feasts, a bard starts singing about the Trojan War.
That must have hit close to home for Odysseus.
It does. He starts to cry, and King Alcinous notices.
Uh-oh, the jig is up.
Pretty much. The king gets suspicious and finally asks Odysseus to tell him who he really is.
I bet that was a satisfying moment.
Oh, yeah. Odysseus finally gets to reveal himself. I am Odysseus, he says, king of Ithaca.
Mic drop.
Exactly. And then he starts telling them about all his adventures.
The Cyclops, the Sirens, Circe, all the good stuff.
Yep, all the stories we know and love.
So we've gone from Mount Olympus to a shipwreck to a surprise reveal. What are some of the key things we should take away from all this?
Well, the big one is this constant battle between fate and free will. The gods are clearly pulling some strings, but the humans are making their own choices too.
Like Odysseus choosing to leave Calypso and Telemachus setting off to find his father.
Exactly. And then there's the importance of hospitality, that whole concept of xenia. The Phaeacians represent the ideal, while the suitors are the complete opposite.
It's like a morality play, showing us what to do and what not to do.
It is. And then there's Odysseus himself. He's been through so much, but he never gives up hope.
He's determined to get home to his family no matter what.
And that's something we can all admire, that resilience and that love for his family. And let's not forget about Telemachus.
He's really come into his own in this part of the story.
He has. He starts out as a boy, but he's forced to grow up fast.
And he makes some brave choices.
He does. So, to recap, we've got the gods setting the stage, chaos in Ithaca, Odysseus battling the elements, a narrow escape, a warm welcome, and a big reveal.
And this is just the beginning.
It is. And it's given us a solid foundation for understanding the rest of the Odyssey.
So, here's something to think about. As you go about your day, ask yourself this. Who do you think is really in control of Odysseus's fate? Is it the gods, with their whims and their interventions? Or is it Odysseus himself, through his choices and his determination?
It's a question the ancient Greeks wrestled with, and it's still relevant today.
And who knows, maybe we'll do another deep dive into some of those amazing adventures Odysseus starts to recount. There's so much more to explore in this epic tale.
There is. and we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
So until next time, keep those questions in mind and keep adventuring.
Happy reading.